Once upon a time, in a snowy season, a giant tree fell off, hitting another tree. The snow fell to the ground, causing a small trough with a small snowball flowed through the folds of the earth where Callie and Lucy were sleeping peacefully. The silence beneath the bark. Callie was asleep when suddenly the snowball broke into his place. He woke up looking at the snow covering all the surface. He stood up on his feet and took a handful of snow in his hands, and still astonished. However, his curiosity led him to come out to the surface above and discover the place. Callie was mesmerized by the giant trees he saw and started pushing the tree that held the other fallen tree. And by looking at the ground, he was searching for a stick to fix the oblique tree. He put it in the tree, and he drew a big smile on his childish face, considering that he fixed that tree. He looked up at the sky and saw the snowflakes falling. He was so delighted to see that. As he continued walking and grabbing snowflakes, he put his fingerprints on one of the trees. Unexpectedly, the yellow Lucy emerged from the ground and glimpsed to the fingerprints he made. Callie lowered his head to the ground, but Lucy was looking for the one who put his fingerprints. He saw the yellow Lucy that passed by him rapidly. He started following her. He was so cheerful when he saw Lucy and followed her path. He stopped. He was upset a little bit that the snowflake dropped at his left eye, but soon as he removed it, it disappeared in his hands. So he took another one, stared at it from all the sides, and then he just ate it. The snowflake slipped into his stomach, but he was so pleased. He ran to Lucy, who was grabbing a stick in her hand, and showed her what to do. She was afraid and astonished at the same time, but she grabbed a snowflake and put it in her mouth. The snowflake rose away in her stomach. She was pleased to see that. Both of them are happy now. Callie took the bigger one now, and it rose the path in his stomach too. And soon enough, they started eating snowballs from the ground. Lucy's looking at Callie now. But Callie wants a bigger snow every time. They're staring at each other happily and dancing. Lucy and Callie split to discover new things about the snow that was falling deep into their bodies. They were playing joyfully, eating snowflakes. They're playing together and enjoying all the time together. They're running everywhere so happily. Everything now turned red, even the snowflakes falling were orange. There was a lot of snow falling. But there was one glowy little snowball fell from above into Callie and Lucy's trunks because they were trees. That glowy snowflake was dropping into the ground. Callie was waiting for it, looking at it, and then he ate it. He felt so overwhelmed that the glowy snowflake glowed, in fact, in his body. He looked at his body all the way around. However, the glowy snow worked as a lighter in the darkness surrounded Callie. Then it faded. They were both standing on a rock, a giant rock, and staring at the glowy snowflake, staring at each other, astonished. But Callie stood up and continued walking in the snowy, windy, cold weather, and Lucy was following him. Callie stopped and looked at Lucy as he was saying goodbye. Then he continued, with that glowy snowflake in his body. Lucy now is all by herself, and Callie continued to walk. He was mesmerized by everything he saw. Callie saw a river, so he ran as fast as he could just to see it. And finally, he's at the river with that glowy snowflake in his body. He bent over to see that fish passing by, and the sparkle of the snowflake was reflected in the water. That glowy snowflake must have a story. So Callie stood up and returned to Lucy. Lucy was standing there, waiting for him. She was glad to see him again. She smiled at him, and he smiled back at her. She took his hand and went into the giant trees. She was looking so childish with that pretty face she had. But Callie was just smiling back at her with that glowy snowflake in his stomach. He suddenly stopped, closed his eyes, and turned into a snowy tall tree, just like the other trees in that forest. Lucy did not understand anything. She turned her back and saw that he became a tree. She went closer to him, put her hands and ears at him, listening at him, and then smiled comfortably. It was like a hug.